Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello. Hello everybody! So over break I've been doing a lot of research. If you know me in real life, you know that I love conspiracy theories and like dark histories and dark theories about books and movies and TV shows, anything like that. And now here is why I'm going to talk to you today in my Shane Dawson conspiracy theory ripoff voice. Not very scary, but we'll see how that goes. So for Christmas, I was surprised with tickets for a July 1st showing of Willy Wonka on Broadway. And the other night I started thinking about it again as I came across the 2005 Tim Burton movie on Netflix, and I was like, I should probably, get myself back up on this story and kind of refresh my mind a little bit, because it's been forever since I've seen this movie and I have an unhealthy obsession with anything Tim Burton and anything Johnny Depp, so let's go. And so I watched the movie at 2 a.m. further fucking over my sleep schedule for when I go back to college next week, so it's great, it's great. And during the movie I remember thinking, wasn't there like some kind of weird theory or idea about this movie and book, and it got me interested in looking it up, and I found out there actually is a few theories. One I knew and one I had never heard of before, and the one that I had never heard of before is probably the more realistic one, but it's just something I never thought about. So I have two theories for you today. So I'm going to be showing you some clips from the movie, maybe both if I can find them, but more often than not it's going to be from the 2005. And before I get too far into it, I know I have weird shadows on my face. It's because I have glasses and a light. I want to get a ring light, but I don't have that right now, so I just have a light up at the top and it's giving me weird shadows because I have the camera like up and facing like that. So angles over lighting, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So theory number one comes from Reddit user Jacob M1. Basically, it happens in both the original movie and the 2005 remake. There's a point where Charlie is shown falling asleep the night that the fifth ticket is found, but when he wakes up the next morning, the fifth ticket is a fake, and he finds money in the street and he goes and buys a bar, and bam, he is the actual one who found the fifth golden ticket. And that is kind of where this theory comes from, where the whole movie is a dream. And as the Reddit post says, the fifth golden ticket is found and reported on the news as he's going to sleep, and he hears this, and his grandfather says as he's falling asleep, "Let him sleep, let him have one last dream."
Soon enough.
Yeah, let him sleep. Let him have one last dream.
So that's kind of where the theory starts, where this might all be a dream sequence for him, because prior to him finding it, his life is sad and his life is difficult and they're very, very poor. And I think this is more towards the original movie. It says Charlie is barely even the main character prior to this point. The story jumps around from character to character. After this point, he's in every scene, and there is a time where the group moves ahead without him in the factory, and we don't see him or know what happens to him until he comes back. And most often in these movies, when the children leave, they don't come back to the group, but he does. And again, in the Reddit post it says prior to the scene where he wins the fifth ticket, all of the winners are basically who you would expect, like rich and spoiled kids, and he barely even had, one to open, let alone finding money for a second. So that's kind of where that theory comes from. Also, his bedridden grandfather suddenly being able to jump up and dance around and be excited like that, and how the factory is basically perfect for him. And they have some examples here, like the waiver to sign that the rich kids are worried about, but Charlie and Grandpa are like, hey, we've got nothing to lose. There's a piece of gum that's a 4-course meal, a candy that literally lasts you forever. If you're poor and you can only buy one, why not have one that can last forever? Repeated confirmations of how bad and spoiled the other kids are in comparison to him, and rather than a lifetime of just chocolate, that would not really be that useful for a family of his upbringing, he actually gets the whole factory, which is food, shelter, and wealth for everybody. And the last reason is that the whole factory has like a dreamlike quality, but I think that just comes from the fact of it being this eccentric guy's factory. Like, I don't think the fact that the place itself is really like whoo looking doesn't really mean anything when the guy running it is kind of whoo, you know what I mean?
And you like my meadow?
try some of my grass? Please have a blade, please do. It's so delectable and so darn good looking.
There's only one problem with this theory, and that's that in the actual book that the movies are based on, there is never a point mentioned where Charlie falls asleep. So that's kind of the only bump in the road in this theory, is that the book never mentions it, so it's kind of hard to say if that's the truth or not. And now we come on to theory number 2, which is the one that I found out about first and the one that I think is the most interesting to talk about, and that's that all of Willy Wonka's candy is made from children.
Even I'm eatable, but that is called cannibalism, my dear children, and is in fact frowned upon in most societies.
Just let that sink in for a second. It's weird, right? I mean, you can't... Do you expect anything else from, you know, a guy who laughs like this and says things like this?
I always thought a verruca was a type of wart you got on the bottom of your foot.
He's weird, right? Like, and it's not just because it's Johnny Depp playing a character. Like, dude's weird. Even Gene Wilder's version was insane.
You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
So shines a good deed in a weary world.
Charlie.
My boy.
You won. You did it. You did it.
Just a little side note, like, even little things like Gene Wilder wanted to walk out with a limp first before revealing that he's not actually a cripple to all the kids, and he said it was kind of to keep that air of Wonka might always be lying to you, whether you know it or not. So that kind of gives him like an air of secrecy to him. About, you know, maybe why he, you know, shut down everything because people were catching on, and why he hired the Oompa Loompas, or the African pygmies if you're reading the book, to kind of keep it under wraps, kind of, and how he can have total control over who works there. So we look at the fact that all of the kids who come in, most of them, except for Charlie, are spoiled and rich, and he knows that they will have some kind of downfall to them. Like in the Chocolate River scene in both movies, Augustus can't control his gluttony, and so he ends up tumbling into the pond.
Oh, Augustus, please, don't do that. My chocolate must never be touched by human hands. Please, don't do that. Don't do that. You're contaminating my entire river. Please, I beg you, Augustus. My chocolate!
Hey, little boy, my chocolate must be untouched by human hands.
Now here's where the first idea comes in. When he falls in, Wonka doesn't seem to care.
My chocolate!
You drowned! He can't swim!
He's not, you know, super interested in it, actually, and he kind of just seems indifferent to the whole thing. But then he's like, oh, you know, don't worry, that pipe is coming, it'll suck him up, it'll take him to, you know, wherever. But the pipe is kind of big, don't you think?
There he goes.
Call the fire brigade!
Even the other people say, that's kind of big.
It's a wonder how that pipe is big enough.
And even though he barely fits through when Augustus is being sucked up, he barely fits through, but he does anyway. It looks like he might not make it up, but he does. Now, if all that pipe is supposed to do is suck up chocolate from a river, why would it need to be that big? Why couldn't it just be like, you know, that big, or even the size of a straw? It might take a while, but you definitely don't need a human-sized pipe going down into your pond, now do you, Wonka?
Now come on, we cry, the time is right to send him shooting up the pipe.
And after this, the mother is taken away and to go, you know, meet up with him, and the remaining children and guardians are put on the boat to go through the tunnel. And when they get on the boat, did you notice anything weird?
Onward!
Did you see that? Well, if you didn't, let me tell you, and then you can go back and watch it again. If two people were just whisked away because, you know, their kid fell in and they needed to go meet them in a different room and they weren't with the group anymore, don't you think the boat would have 2 empty seats for the missing child and parent? There's not. There's just enough seats for the remaining children and guardians as well as Mr. Wonka. And there's no mention of them again. I mean, granted, in the they do come back out of the factory at the end, but like, come on. And now we move on to the nut room with Veruca. Veruca is the one of the spoiled children who decides that she wants one of the squirrels that is specially trained to test for bad nuts.
Daddy, I want a squirrel. Get me one of those squirrels.
Now, I'm going to show you a quick clip of the room when they first walk in. Now here's where I started to get, started to think a little bit. If the squirrels are only supposed to be picking out, bad walnuts in a bunch coming down out of a tube, why is the bad nut hole in the floor so big? If all they're doing is throwing, little walnuts and walnut shells this big down a chute, why is the chute big enough not only for a small child, but for an adult man? It's also said that, that chute then leads to, it's a garbage chute and it then leads to an incinerator.
Where does the chute go? To the incinerator.
Which, doesn't get lit on Tuesday, so it's fine.
But don't worry, we only light it on Tuesdays.
Today is Tuesday.
Well, there's always the chance they decided not to light it today.
However, once again, Veruca goes down in, determined to get a squirrel herself, since her dad won't get one for her. And as she crawls through the gate that's clearly locked, Wonka does nothing. He just watches.
If you won't get me a squirrel, I'll get one myself.
He doesn't stop her. He doesn't say anything. The most he says is, little girl.
Little girl?
Like, that's gonna stop her. But he doesn't even try. So she goes down. The squirrels notice her. Now, once again, if these are just supposed to be squirrels that are specially trained to test walnuts, how did they know how to hold down a small child and then pick her up and move her to the chute? It's just weird little things like that. And also there was a clip in, I'm not sure if it's in Gene Wilder's version, but I know that Johnny Depp did this. As she's being held down by the squirrels and the dad is freaking out trying to get down there, do you see how he kind of flips through his keys? He's very nonchalant about it.
Find the key. Oh, not that one.
Very oh, that's not the right one.
No, it's not.
Darn it, let's try again.
There it is. There it isn't.
He doesn't really have a sense of urgency to him. He doesn't care. And I think specifically about Veruca, he doesn't care, because when she introduces herself, he just kind of goes
I always thought a verruca was a type of wart you got on the bottom of your foot.
He might have a personal vendetta against her, but regardless, if you're showing 5 people around your factory for the first time in years, and so far one of them has already been sucked up a pipe, and now this one's being held down by your squirrels, wouldn't you be a little bit more, worried? He's, not worried at all. He gives 0 fucks. And now with Violet in the inventory room with all the experimental candy. Once again, he tries a little bit to kind of discourage them from wanting to try it by being we've had problems with this. It's still being worked on. The ending isn't what it's supposed to be. But does that stop her? Of course it doesn't, and he knows it's not going to stop her.
I'd rather you didn't. There's still 1 or 2 things that are...
I'm the world record holder in chewing gum. I'm not afraid of anything.
And once again, as she's, chewing this experimental gum when she's not supposed to be, he's not even trying to stop her. Once again, it's just hey, don't do that. He doesn't care. He knows what's gonna happen, and he doesn't care that it's happening. And, so she blows up to a blueberry, goes to get juiced, which could be used for flavorings. You never know. And now with Mike TV, his is kind of, again, I think maybe a little bit of a personal thing, because from the beginning he was like a smart alecky, science-y, know-it-all kind of kid, and I just don't think it was kind of obvious. They didn't like each other, you know? So, and once again, like, this kid is running towards this thing that he has just been told is, you know, dangerous and not for humans and blah, 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 blah. He saw how big the bar was to get this size, and he knows he's not that big, but he goes in anyway. Once again, Wonka does nothing to stop him.
Hey, little boy. Don't push my button.
And then he gets taken to the taffy puller. Now, I know in the movie he comes out at the end, all like tall and skinny and whatnot, but do you really think that would help him? Just being stretched out? What happens after he goes home? Is he just gonna live like that forever? Or is he just gonna like blow away in the wind, you know? And the thing is, like, if you're building something like that, where you're gonna send something through television, why wouldn't you make a way for it to be reversed in case something accidentally goes wrong? He just didn't think about it, or did he just not care? And now we're gonna get into something about the book. So in the original book, there's actually a 6th child, and her name is Miranda Piker, and she actually falls into like a vat. Yeah, she falls into a spotty powder mixer, and it's obviously on, so it's kind of just going, and it's kind of implied that she falls down and is chopped up while it's spinning. She survives because the screams then turn into laughter, which I need to reread this book, man, because I don't remember that at all. So in the book, her mother calls Wonka a murderer, saying, "I know your tricks, you're grinding them into powder. In 2 minutes, my darling Miranda will come pouring out of one of those dreadful pipes." Like, she's like cracked the code. She's like, oh my god, he uses them in his candy. And Wonka replies, "Of course. That's the recipe." And he only says this, again, it's said in the book, he says this because he sees that Miranda is still alive, and they're both kind of joking with the mom. But even so, why would you do that? What would possess you to joke like that when she thinks that her kid just got turned into powder? And now specifically talking about Tim Burton's version of the film from 2005, they kind of delve more into the reason why Wonka might not like people so much. And it's, you know, it shows his backstory as a child, like he was bullied, his father was a dentist and didn't let him, you know, ever have candy. He was made fun of, you know, for his headgear, and he just wasn't that popular of a kid. So I can see how that can kind of get him to like grow up and be, you know, more eccentric and kind of be everything that he wanted to be when he was younger. But maybe it's his way of getting back at those kids from the past, you know? But regardless, I love this story. I love the theories. I love the movies. I've already said this, but I love Johnny Depp. So that's all I have for that. There might be more theories around this. I don't know. I'm gonna look into it. If there's any more like theories or conspiracies or anything like that you want me to talk about, please leave it down here. I'm really interested in finding out because I love to find more. This has been really fun talking about this, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I have a few more things in the works. More singing, most likely. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you next time. Bye. I heard my dog running around. Okay. I didn't think this ahead. I probably should have turned my camera on before, or my laptop on before I started talking. Well. Now we're just gonna have some extra quality time. Okay. Alright. Come on. Yeah, I didn't get this ready at all. I'm sorry. Hold up. I got it ready. And we still going. Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello. That wasn't good enough. Hello everybody, so while I've been home on break, I've been watching a lot of movies in my free time, because fuck. It got me interested in looking. Check this, make sure we're still recording. And so I decided to watch the movie at 2 a.m, further fucking over my sleep schedule. I stuttered really hard. And so I watched the movie at 2 a.m, further fucking over my speech? No! And so I watched the movie at